This is Challenger Approaching, where we take a character who isn't playable in Smash Bros. Yet and theorycraft a full fighter design as if they got in for real. Our challenger this time is a fan favorite who just can't catch a break when it comes to Smash. He was all but expected to show up as an Echo Fighter last time, yet his fans have been left waiting instead. But a recent game just made his case very interesting, with a set of new powers boosting a repertoire that already diverged in places from his rivals. He has a stronger argument now to fight not as an Echo, but as a fighter all his own. So how can we incorporate this newfound moveset potential? And how can we highlight his unique abilities in a way that feels both different and better balanced than his counterpart currently is? Only one way forward, so let's get moving! Shadow. Shadow the Hedgehog is a recurring rival and foil to Sonic, fighting against or alongside the Blue Blur at different times. Shadow is also famous for the lore and emotional weight he introduced to the series. Seriously. Shadow's origins in-universe start 50 years in the past, with a project by the mad genius Gerald Robotnik, grandfather of the Eggman we know, to create the ultimate life form. Through this process, Shadow was given incredible powers connected to the Chaos Emeralds, enhanced by genetic material offered by the alien warlord Black Doom, who happened to be passing by and had an agenda of his own. It makes sense in context. Shadow's early years were lonely, isolated to the space colony where Professor Gerald was stationed, with only the professor and his young daughter Maria as company. As time passed, Shadow and Maria became like brother and sister, as Gerald worked to help Shadow control his powers while seeking a cure for the terminal condition Maria was slowly wasting away from. And then everything went to hell when a paramilitary group working for the government decided Gerald knew too much and stormed the colony to cover everything up, leading to Maria famously getting caught in the crossfire and losing her life, Gerald going mad from grief, and Shadow being captured, put into stasis, and locked away. Until one day when the professor's grandson learned about the classified Project Shadow and sprung him loose. His memories still hazy, Shadow misinterpreted Maria's dying plea, vowing revenge on the humans who had taken everything from him. But as his memories became somewhat clearer, he recalled what she truly wanted, for him to protect the innocent as only he can, leading, eventually, to the prickly anti-hero we know and love today. With Shadow's debut in Sonic Adventure 2, Sega had a breakout star on their hands, and they proceeded to fumble that bag for years. For the rest of the 2000s and into the 2010s, the quality of Sonic's games and media were hit and miss, to put it lightly. For every poignant moment that added more depth to the series, there were 3 more that made it a laughingstock as the writers struggled to understand why Shadow worked as a character, leading to moments like,
"Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald?"
and
"This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me."
and
Chaos Control!
so meme-worthy that they, well, overshadowed everything else about him. Yet despite the many stumbles, Shadow still has a ton of fans. People still appreciate what he brings to the Sonic games, even when the execution leaves them wanting. And even his cringiest moments still have this endearing factor. Quick, imagine what a cliché edgelord voice sounds like. For most of you, it was a parody of Shadow's voice, wasn't it? It's that steady support despite all the ups and downs that has made Shadow a perennial request for Smash ever since Sonic himself got in. And his fans are left wondering, will the next game finally be that chance? While there's timing and other factors to consider, let's see what he could work with, new material included, if he did make it in. What could Shadow bring to Smash? Shadow's appearance isn't hard to transfer over. The jet black body, dark red highlights, and high-tech air shoes are peak turn-of-the-century design that still holds up. As an addition, we'll give him 1 Chaos Emerald to draw power from for certain attacks. Which one depends on the player slot. Player 8 gets the fake emerald, but everything still works. It does have the same wavelength and properties as the real ones. More important is Shadow's personality, the thing that makes him so different from his counterpart. Where Sonic is more laid back and likes to style on his opponents, Shadow takes things more seriously. If he's fighting to protect innocent people, or for his own sake, there's no time to play games. His animations will have fewer extra spins and flourishes, focused instead on being direct and to the point. He'd rather just hit his opponents until they surrender or stop moving. Shadow's alternate costumes are all pretty dark, but there is still color variety. His second and third alts take the highlight colors of the android doppelgangers from his infamous 2005 title's multiplayer mode. His fourth is inspired by another android and a little by Sonic himself, not that Shadow would admit that. The fifth has vibrant pink highlights inspired by Rouge the Bat, an on-and-off ally of his. Sixth is a monotone black and gray inspired by the original Terios concept art that eventually became Shadow. His seventh alt takes on a malevolent purple based on he can't seem to remember who, and he has the feeling he doesn't want to. And the final alt, of course, is a palette inspired by Maria in Memoriam. Getting the stats and data right for Shadow, especially his fighting style, means making them a natural extension of how he'd want to fight. Fortunately, that's not hard. With incredible speed and fairly fast attacks overall, when grounded, it'll make sense later. Shadow rushes foes down with cold precision while rolling his eyes at conventional attempts to wall him out. He may not go out of his way to look cool, but this kind of playstyle is usually a fan favorite anyway. Wait a second, you might be thinking. Isn't Sonic's optimal playstyle in the last couple Smash games to run away from opponents when he has the lead? How do you keep Shadow from using his speed to also do that? Worry not, oh concerned viewer, I have a plan. I came up with an overhaul for Sonic a couple years back with fixing that exact problem in mind, and I've taken similar measures here so that Shadow is also encouraged to keep the pressure on instead of playing keep away. Now for the actual stats, where some of these might look less familiar than expected. Shadow may be a foil to Sonic, but I gave him some differences that should go a long way. To start, his initial dash is 10% faster than Sonic's, but his full running speed is 10% worse. I know, it sounds like sacrilege, but hear me out. Sonic's movement in Smash tries to imitate the feel of his 2D outings, so I've attempted to have Shadow carry the feel of the 3D games. Reaching high speeds in 3D Sonic is less about pure momentum and more about split-second decision-making and recognizing which of your larger moveset will get you past the next obstacles quickly. While Shadow's raw speed comes just short of Sonic's blistering pace, he has more ways to utilize it. The rest of the stats reflect this embodiment of the 3D games. His airspeed is just a little worse than Sonic's, and his fall speed is slightly lower, but his mid-air control is better. He's also a couple points heavier than Sonic, though still in the lightweight tier. Walk speed is faster than Sonic's official stat in Ultimate, but identical to the aforementioned remake, which slightly buffed it. These stat variations work with Shadow's moveset to change his numerical ratings. With above average damage per hit and strong combo potential, Shadow doesn't just win exchanges up close, he gets rewarded for it. Sonic's remake video dialed back the damage output and made his attack speed less consistent to emphasize mixing up and misdirecting opponents. Shadow is more in your face about his offense, though sometimes he can have trouble playing anything other than aggressively. You'll see what I mean. Alright, let's see how Shadow's moveset can stand out. Starting with the basics, his jab is already different. Performing his default combo from Sonic Battle, he does a quick chop, then a rising kick, then a back kick. Compared to Sonic's jab, it deals a little more damage with more knockback at high percents, which makes it worth using. Shadow's forward tilt is a quick rolling somersault inspired by his default attack in Sonic Adventure 2. Propels him half a dash length forward, then quickly spins back half that distance. A quick disruptor with great forward reach, but if it whiffs or hits someone's shield, you're probably getting punished, since it ends with him about a step in front of where he started. For his up tilt, Shadow flips in place, delivering an arcing kick to anyone above him. Good for clearing the air nearby if anyone's trying to play chicken around you. Also great for running in and catching opponents who try to jump away. Down tilt is a quick spin kick with one leg at ground level. One of a select few moves that does resemble Sonic's counterpart. Even Shadow can tell if a cool looking move is useful, but this one pops opponents up on hit, setting up combos. Then Shadow's dash attack carries his momentum into a long sliding kick. Based on the move from the recent Sonic games, the hitbox on this one lasts a while. Great for catching landings without having to be precise, but since it can't pass through shields, you're a sitting duck if it gets blocked. That's the basic stuff. Now here is where Shadow stops holding back. For his forward smash, he gathers his strength, then suddenly leaps a short distance forward and delivers a rapid chain of 5 punches and kicks. A multi-hit attack with forward burst, it closes short distances, punishes whiffed attacks, and has legit power on the last hit. It's also a big commitment, so make sure it connects. Now to tap into that Chaos Emerald from earlier. Shadow's up smash has him take out the emerald from who knows where, channel its power into his hands, and rise into the air with a multi-hit energy attack. Unusual for an anti-air, it brings Shadow upward to meet anyone right above him, pulling them in for heavy damage. The color of the energy matches whichever emerald he's using, based on player slot, remember? Shadow's down smash uses the emerald's power in another way. Focusing its energy beyond his body, he crouches and snaps his fingers twice to create 2 concentrated blasts in front of and behind him. While slower than other forward and back down smashes, its power more than makes up for it. Shadow's aerials keep the pressure on, as long as he thinks ahead. His neutral air uses the emerald again, this time surrounding himself with a sphere of distorted space that flickers for multiple hits. A combo finisher and mid-air interceptor, great for jumping in on enemies. Its startup is slower than you'd expect, so it's actually not great for punishing someone who just hit your shield. Shadow's other aerials are all hand-to-hand combat. For his forward air, he kicks twice ahead with one leg than the other. Closest functionally to Zero Suit Samus, it's slower than Sonic's forward air and doesn't last as long, but it reaches further and deals more damage. Back air has Shadow turn around and deliver a more forceful kick with one foot. This one's another move directly based on Sonic's, picked up because it already hits hard. Let's say Shadow taught himself how to do it in secret. His up air is more original, leaning back a little and kicking straight up in a way he's done in a few cutscenes before. Might be less stylish than Sonic's fancy scissor kick, but lower end lag makes it a better combo move. Even starts netting knockouts at higher percents, making it useful despite the hitbox not reaching behind him. Rounding out the set, Shadow's down air has him stall in mid-air, aim, and rocket downward with a diagonal kick. Sure, it looks like Sonic's down air, but Shadow did it before Brawl existed. It's also a sneaky good spike right as he starts plummeting, if you're willing to risk it. What about Shadow's grab game? His grab animations are nothing unusual, honestly. Similar to Sonic animation-wise, they're 1 frame slower than usual for a brawler to make up for his ridiculous mobility. His pummel's also the same knee strike. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Shadow's throws are where he diverges more. His forward throw uses his Chaos Emerald with his free hand, channeling its energy into the hand holding his foe for a multi-hit shock. Kind of resembles Chaos Upper from Sonic Battle, but with an adjusted animation and forward knockback instead of vertical. For his back throw, Shadow spins around to the front of his target, hops into the air, and look, I couldn't not include it, okay? As effective as it is mimetic, it's even a legit kill throw, KOing at ledge around 130 onward. Shadow's strong enough to overturn a car if he focuses enough. Flinging another fighter upward is child's play. This one's just a soft toss though, on purpose, because it lets him combo out of it up through mid-percents. And for his down throw, Shadow short hops in place and comes down fast with an immediate, hard-hitting stomp. If you've watched Sonic's remake, you'll remember this technique was his new down air. Shadow uses it differently instead, as a throw for double-digit damage. Finally, Shadow's taunts are less for boasting and more for intimidating. His up taunt has him hold his emerald up as it levitates above his hand and emanates energy as he says, "Behold, the ultimate power." His side taunt has him spin in place and strike a pose, saying, "You can't keep up with me." And his down taunt has Shadow cross his arms while glaring forward and slightly down, then scoff and return to his idle stance. Perfect for reacting to an opponent or a teammate who just did something stupid. Shadow's specials are all connected by a central mechanic. Like how Sonic got a boost gauge in his rework, Shadow will have his own meter representing the power he builds up as he fights. How do you gain meter? Simple. Inflict damage on opposing fighters. Shadow's aggressive nature plays right into it, but to keep it up, you need to keep the pressure on. Go too long without damaging an opponent, and you start slowly losing meter as the stored power starts to dissipate. This means players have to stay on offense, fighting much like Shadow himself does, to make the most of his specials. The meter's a combination of all powers Shadow has wielded in different games, and his specials borrow from multiple sources. First up, one of his signature moves. Chaos Spear is a recurring power he's had since Sonic Adventure 2, and Shadow Generations expanded on it. Press B, and Shadow raises one hand, forming chaos energy into a spear-like shape. Then, he hurls it straight ahead. The spear moves very fast, covering most of an average stage length. It only deals minor damage if it hits someone, but it briefly stuns them in place like a Dragon Fang shot, leaving them open to attack for a brief moment Shadow can capitalize on. While the spear has greater than average startup for a projectile, it has surprisingly low end lag, so he can follow it up quickly if he's close enough. But what about that meter? Well, if you hold B at the start, Shadow expends about 30% of its total size to infuse the spear with one of the powers Black Doom foolishly granted to him in Generations. This splits the spear into 3 for more total damage and stun, and gives them minor homing ability to target enemies slightly above or below their flight path. Chaos Spear is a projectile designed to help Shadow approach and force enemies to interact with him, stop them in their tracks, and rush them down unopposed. But it needs to be carefully balanced so it doesn't encourage camping from a distance instead. Above average startup and a predictable flight path would limit its ability to zone, and the act of throwing the spear moves Shadow forward a couple steps, helping players who want to get in but sabotaging those who want to stay away. What's next? Shadow gains some really bizarre stuff in Generations, and one of them gives him new ways to move around. Doom Morph is the most complex of the Doom powers, but mastering it opens up a whole other source of mobility. On use, Shadow morphs into a strange squid-like alien form that sticks to the ground. Immediately, he propels himself forward, charging into any foes in his way. While in this form, Shadow's hurt box is so low that he can pass right under a lot of enemy attacks, slipping through their offenses and turning the tables on them. And this move has an extra feature if you have meter available. Hold B at the start, and Shadow expends a chunk of the gauge to leap in place and extend a dark appendage to latch on to a grapple point right in front of him, which he's apparently figured out how to create in limited fashion. Then he swings from it, faster than in Generations, and depending on when you let go of B, he launches himself at high speed at one of several angles. A steep one if held all the way, a quick diagonal or horizontal leap if under the grapple point, and if he's directly below it, he slingshots himself straight up through it? Weird alien logic, I guess. Doom Morph is a burst option as strange as it is effective. By default, it lets Shadow approach under enemy attacks. Expending meter turns it into a complicated yet versatile recovery option that also knocks away reckless edgeguard attempts. If you use the uncharged version in midair, Shadow jets forward while falling, moving diagonally downward while being much easier to hit than when grounded. That's one way to recover, but Shadow's got an up special too. For that, he taps into another power. He's been able to teleport short distances in a few games, but Generations gave him a Doom power that adds more offense. Activate it, and Shadow blinks out of existence, using the power of Chaos to zip a short distance in any cardinal or diagonal direction. As he reappears, he throws out a kick that strikes anyone nearby. He's not just moving fast, he is outright warping, able to bypass stage hazards, enemy attacks, and projectiles to reach his target. And like his other specials, you can spend meter to power it up by holding at the start. Doing so has Shadow take on a reddish dark aura before disappearing, and if he hits someone upon re-emerging, he goes into a string of multiple punches and strikes, ending with a final powerful kick whose trajectory you can influence by holding up or down. While it's merely decent for recovery, its usefulness on offense makes Doom Blast another tool to mix in and make it harder for opponents to keep you at bay. Being able to hold and wait before picking a direction also makes it great for tech chasing, especially on platforms. However, keep in mind that this move only has a damaging hitbox when Shadow comes back, nothing as he first vanishes, and the whole thing is slower and laggier than most other teleport recoveries. 3 specials down, and aren't we missing something? Oh, right. We need his other signature move. Couldn't not use Chaos Control, and the version from Generations gives us something especially interesting. With his meter fully charged, pressing down and B has Shadow suddenly glow with a brilliant green light as he enters the state of chaos control. Bending the laws of physics to his will as long as it's active, all of his mobility stats are amped up to incredible levels. From his perspective, it's like everything around him is moving in slow motion, but in Smash, it's shown at normal speed, giving Shadow hypermobility for several seconds to run down anyone and everyone. However, there are limits to this. The moment you perform an attack, grab, or another special, or begin charging a smash attack, Shadow exits Chaos Control immediately, retaining some, but not all, of whatever meter was left over. Oh, and if you try using this move with less than full meter, you still get a quick mid-air dash inspired by Chaos Shift and Sonic Dream Team, at the expense of some of that meter. Chaos Control is an immediate, incredible mobility buff, available if you land enough hits without any long gaps in between. The dash is useful on its own, and popping the full version and moving at hyperspeed for a little while is as hard to control as it sounds. But mastering it so you don't overshoot people, careen off stage, or get hit during either version and waste time would let you run, well, skate, circles around your enemies just like blasting through stages in Shadow's games at Mach speed. Alright, you know we need something big for the final Smash, and I know just the thing. Shadow's had ultimate techniques before, but his newest outing has a moment that combines several into one. Empowered even further by the Smash Ball, Shadow shouts as a pair of eldritch wings sprout from his back, and he quickly dashes straight ahead in a line. If any foes are struck by this opening blow, they're in for it. Whisked away to a cinematic set above a distorted city, a part of his trials in white space that he wants to remember, the afflicted foes are left stunned in midair as Shadow hovers before them. Channeling chaos energy effortlessly, he forms a storm of spears that rain down upon them to soften them up. Then he builds up speed by zigzagging through the air, rears back, and charges straight through them with a punch powered by chaos, doom, and his own pure determination. So powerful that it leaves an enormous explosion in its wake. Whether or not they're still standing after that, the message is clear. They've already lost. This is how Shadow could fight in Smash. An ultimate warrior with a tragic past and an unscrupulous streak for doing what he believes needs to be done. Neither black-hearted evil nor brave-hearted hero, his methods may be brutal and morally gray, but even if the world hates him, he'll still fight to give them a chance to be happy. After all, sometimes it takes a shadow to show others where to find the light. Shadow is a high-octane, rush-down fighter who approaches foes with ease and overwhelms them with attacks. He also has ways to disrupt enemy zoners, slipping past their walls and forcing them to fight directly. And his power meter makes him even scarier when used tactically, letting his advantage snowball alarmingly fast. However, Shadow must stay aggressive to keep his meter available, limiting his ability to play safer with the lead. If he isn't able to keep his rushdown going and his meter available, his offense and recovery grow weaker and more predictable, and he lacks any fast defensive attacks, reliant on his speed and putting him in danger if cornered or trapped in his shield. Glad to have this one finally done. Took a while to figure out what specials I wanted where. At different points, Chaos Control was an up special, Doom Morph was a down special, Chaos Spear was its side, and Doom Blast was neutral. I think I like them best where they currently are. By the way, did you notice how 3 of the specials also worked in fragments of other moves? Chaos Spear also includes Doom Spears, Doom Blast includes Chaos Snap, etc. I realized that giving Shadow a moveset that completely lacks the spin dash or boost might be a bit much. I wanted to emphasize the stuff specific to this character, even if it meant a couple things got left off, and even though we don't know if the Doom powers will come back in future games, and that's if timing isn't already against them. If Smash 6 is already in development, Shadow Generations is probably too late to factor into its starting roster. For the Doom powers to be available to use, he'll have to miss out on the starting roster again, then make it in through DLC. On the bright side, it seems like Shadow is finally in good hands again. Between Generations and the Sonic 3 movie, it feels like there are finally writers on board who understand what makes the character work. Hopefully this keeps up, and Sega's upper management doesn't get in their own way again. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Special thanks to the following for helping create this video. Thanks to my patrons as well for the continued support. And now, it's their turn to step up. Anyone currently backing me on Patreon for as little as $1 per month can vote on which of these characters gets featured next, including a new hopeful who's been gaining more support lately. So, until next time, sayonara.